Welcome to the Focus Cast. Today we're going to talk about the internal family systems model. Whew, that's a mouthful. First off, Bryan.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
It's therapy, bro.
No, nice therapy. You're learning all kinds of things.
I know. So we did an episode on disassociation,
Right.
And someone, actually a guy named Michael Plasha, who we're gonna have on the podcast here soon, recommended a book called "The Body Keeps the Score."
Nice.
So it's about how the body literally, every part of the body has memory, even our skin.
Right.
And it just talks about how, events that we went through in life, your body stores that, not just in the
Absolutely.
brain, but all over
Physically,
the body.
yeah.
It's pretty wild. So one of the models that the book talked about was this internal family systems model. And honestly, I loved it so much. I was like,
We got to do a sode.
let's do a sode and maybe it'll be powerful for someone else.
Hey, I like that. Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
I say we dig in.
Let's do it.
I'm Jonathan Noel.
And I'm Bryan Noel,
This is the Focus Cast.
where we want to reduce distractions
Increase focus.
so we can live a life with intention.
Man, I want to do that today.
I want to do it right now. So let's get focused as boy. All right, so
So we're talking about the internal family systems model,
also known as IFS.
IFS.
That's right, the
So
IFS model.
You heard about this from the Body Keeps the Score or the therapy session?
So the therapy session led to disassociation.
Yep.
Talking to a friend about my therapy and EMDR, which this book also covers EMDR in detail.
Right. If you're just hopping in,
Yeah.
first time ever listening, Bryan,
Yes.
my brother
This guy right here.
over here, started therapy because you forgot about 10 years of your childhood. Just It's wiped out.
It's wiped out.
Just completely, it's gone.
Yeah.
So you wanted to uncover some of those memories. Just a
Yeah.
quick recap. Okay,
Yeah.
sweet.
Yes. And honestly, for me, therapy is like having a mental coach, just like having a physical coach.
Right, of course.
So I want to constantly improve mental, physical, and spiritual. So I feel like a great therapist is a way to uncover some of this mental stuff. And
For sure.
yeah, so I'm on my fourth session. I think my fifth session is this week, Thursday, and this is March 2023. And so I learned about disassociation in therapy, and then I was talking to a guy about it who's a mindfulness guy, Michael, and he said, you should read the book, The Body Keeps the Score. So the book talks about EMDR, and the book talks about the internal family systems model.
Nice.
That's how we are here right now in this moment, talking about it on this episode.
Hell yeah. Excellent recap.
Yeah, man.
All right, so the IFS model.
Yeah.
So it's a therapeutic approach developed by Richard Schwartz.
That's right.
Which views the mind as consisting of different parts or subpersonalities.
Do you ever feel like your head is two different people when you sometimes are extremely mad or sometimes when you're extremely happy? It feels like two different people sometimes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what's really interesting is the theory behind this is, we have the thinking brain and the emotional brain.
That makes sense.
And these are actually two different parts of the brain.
Right.
So
You're
even
probably
though,
looking frontal cortex and the,
yeah,
I don't know shit about the brain, but I'm just guessing. And
Yes,
then
no, you're right.
The amygdala or something.
yes, the amygdala is more the emotional brain. And of course, there's
The other
it's
stuff.
way more complex than all this. But it's just like you have a left hand and a right hand. Well, you can do two things together, or you can do individual things.
Right.
So what happens with the brain is you cope and you find different ways to cope when you experience trauma, especially childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So what the brain does, which is absolutely wild, is the brain will shut down certain parts of itself to protect itself. So
Right.
that's where disassociation comes from. Your brain literally tries to shut down the emotional self because it doesn't want to experience. And this is insane. We were talking about this the other day. There's actual, pathways in the brain,
Mm-hmm.
And when you do new things, like your brain physically
Creates new pathways.
Yeah. So it's like it's not just a mental thing. It's like literally physical pathways in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So when the brain tries to, this is me talking from experience and learning all this in 30 days, but when the brain doesn't want to recall certain memories, that's where, because of the emotional trauma within those memories, that's where the brain will literally shut it out. And then year after year after year, those pathways die to the point to where
There's separation.
there's separation.
Physical separation.
Yes. And that's why when you meet someone who they're fine, but then you piss them off and they like punch a hole in the wall, they're literally operating on a different piece of their brain and they seem like a different person.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Or like even on that's a pretty extreme example,
Yes.
but like when you just naturally meet someone and they're very kind or very loving or something like that, but then you meet them again and they're like, maybe they got a major deadline or something like that, and they're super stressed out.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
they're
yeah,
like micromanaging or they're trying to control or whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, but it's
It's
just
a
like,
different personality.
Who are you? And this is why I read 50% of marriages, the majority of marriages when end up in divorce is within 5 years or less.
Makes
So,
sense.
yeah, I mean, you think about it, you go from living by yourself to, or, you know, kind of more independent to a spouse around you all the time, which causes a lot of those triggers. Well, essentially what happens is it's pushing you into sides of your brain that you've been intentionally shutting off or coping with or medicating with drugs and alcohol and food and work.
Yeah. Everything, every distraction there is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden you're like, well, I hate this person. Well, the reality is you don't hate the person in front of you. That person's a mirror.
Yeah.
You hate yourself.
Ouch.
Yeah. So it's pretty tough. But anyway, it's amazing because the first part of all this stuff is just how do we even begin to articulate what's happening? Why do we lash out or why do we get really sad sometimes?
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
You know, why does that even happen? And this model is
Unpacking that.
yeah, it's a way to illustrate what the brain's doing. It's just trying to protect himself.
You can't be mad at the brain for trying to protect itself.
Yeah, and actually it's a good point that you just said because the first step is thanking the brain for doing those things.
It makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
you talked about the other day, and I love that what you said, there's no such thing as a heart attack. Your body doesn't attack you, you know?
Yes.
Your body does everything it possibly can to keep you alive until you finally pushed it so far
It
that
does.
it ran out of resources.
Yeah. I don't even remember where I heard that from, but I love that quote.
Yeah, I mean, our bodies are amazing.
Yeah. Our bodies.
If you just get out of the way, it'll heal.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a totally different thing. But you can't blame it. Our minds, I mean, it's all one system.
Yeah.
So your mind does mental gymnastics to protect you.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple. So in the IFS model, there's 3 characters.
Okay, what do we got?
So I'll hit them first and then we'll break them down. So there's the exile,
Okay.
the manager, and the firefighter.
Okay.
And if you picture this diagram, you know, like the 3 circles, then there's the center.
Yeah,
So-
like a Venn, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Venn diagram. So picture the exile as a circle, the manager as a circle, the firefighter as a circle, and then they all overlap over the true self.
Okay.
So what are exiles, bro?
Exiles, young, vulnerable parts which carry burdens, kept in isolation by these parts, which protect the individual from experiencing difficult emotions.
Yeah, that's the exiles. So it's like when something difficult happens in your life, whether it's a burst, you know, a traumatic event, or a series
Let's
of
go with the classic, like, breakup.
breakup.
Super classic. So now you have the walls up and you're not going to be open or emotionally available and that kind of stuff.
That's right.
That's your
the
exile.
That's
Okay,
your exile.
got it. Nice.
So the manager is the group of parts that use various proactive ways to protect the individual from being overwhelmed by the difficult emotions carried by the exiles. Their job is to control the person's psyche and maintain a system of stability.
Oof, the jugglers.
Yes. So the manager is like, and that's again, like, I used to say this quote all the time. This has been so amazing in therapy for me. I've had all these quotes to describe how I feel, but it turns out that I was just articulating my coping infrastructure. So
Yeah.
I used to always say, I'm a person who goes between radical confidence and critical self-doubt.
Right.
Well, all I'm saying is I'm going from manager to exile.
Pretty much. Exactly.
And I've been, I'm 40, so I've been doing this for 35 years, creating this codependency life, and or this this alter ego manage your life, right?
Yeah.
To figure out how to deal with whatever happened. But for me, you know the manager, Bryan.
Oh yeah.
Get shit done.
Let's go.
Yeah. And then, which I actually brought, I got to get my notebook. It's over there, but I actually have listed out in preparation for a therapy session my exiles, managers, and firefighters. I ain't afraid to share. Shit. What's the last one, bro?
The old firefighters.
Oh, what are these?
You gotta
what do
have
these guys
firefighters.
do?
Group of reactive parts that activate impulsively. Okay. They activate impulsively when difficult emotions of the exiles come to the surface in an effort to control them.
Yeah.
They extinguish emotional fires.
Yeah. Like crush a case of beer.
Yeah. Yeah. You start
Like, ooh, you
shotgunning beers. You
Yeah.
grab the ice cream, whatever it is for you.
Yeah, it's like if you went through something traumatic and someone's like, man, tell me more. And you're like, I don't want to talk about it. And then you go crush a sixer of triple IPAs. That's your firefighter. Just say, no. that emotion, you know. So it's pretty cool. So this is interesting, bro. So the question is, can we find ourselves in these parts, right? So we've got some examples here, some expressions of each character.
Yeah. Exile. Let's hit that one first. Looking like, yep. Can you find a part of yourself? Looking like fear would be part of the exile. Feeling of guilt, anger, shame, responsibility, sense of worthlessness, hopelessness, loneliness, emptiness. Wow. Grief, disappointment.
Yeah. That's the
brutal.
exile. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So there's some phrases that I have in my head. See if I can remember them, even though I'm not looking at my notes. That would be exile quotes. So for someone to relate to this, like you may have a phrase in your head that would be the emotion of an exile. So I had a phrase in my head before that I am cursed.
Those people say they're unlucky.
Yeah.
They're cursed.
I'm cursed.
You know? Why is it always happening to me?
Yeah, like there's no way I can be successful because I'm cursed.
That's a convenient scope gate.
Yeah.
Or scope gate. Scapegoat.
Scapegoat.
Scope gate.
Yeah. So that's an exile. That's the emotion of an exile articulating itself in a phrase.
Yeah, the exile the exile is like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work because you're not this, you're not that, you can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Another exile quote that I had that my head told me sometimes is like there is no you. Right? And that goes back to disassociation and like feeling like you're in the matrix. Like like you don't even know who you are. There is no you. There is no me. Right?
There's just the thing you've created.
Yeah. Which leads to like apathy.
Yeah, you're like, what's the point?
What's the point?
What's the point?
There is no me. That's an exile quote.
That's definitely an exile quote.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, huh?
Pretty wild.
Some managers.
Managers.
What do the managers do, bro?
Controller, perfectionist,
Perfectionist.
passive pessimist,
Ooh.
babysitter.
Yeah, so the controller, I've done that in my life. Like you want to control the situation.
Yeah, of course.
Have you ever heard when someone says like you're very OCD about certain things? Well, it's because parts of your life are so out of control.
They want to control something.
You want to control what you can. That's
Yep.
the manager.
Yeah.
Perfectionist, it's got to be right. It's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
That's a manager in the midst of the internal family system. So the passive pessimist is just like, just being passive, like, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Call me an idiot, beat me up. Just being passive, just submitting, but being extremely pessimistic about it, right? And then the babysitter, like, so you just wanna fix someone else,
Yeah.
right? You want to take care of their problems
Because you can't take care of your own probably, so maybe you can find some fulfillment in
Absolutely.
and taking care of someone else.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's like, it's the therapist who can't work through their own things. It's the teacher who tries to control the kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
But their kids hate them. They don't know how to parent their own kids,
Yeah.
Not that any of us really know how to parent, but you know what I mean? So that's the manager, man. They just want to jump in and they want to control the situation as much as possible.
Makes sense.
And so for me, like the manager, I can relate to the manager because after 30 years, like I've kind of strategically created space for the exiles.
Mm-hmm.
This is really interesting. Well, we'll hit firefighters and I'll talk about how I've developed a life in this model.
Firefighters, this is exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
If you're coping with these things, this is your firefighter. Food, sweets, smoking, alcohol, drugs, porn, gambling, shopping, work, use of social media.
Yeah, I didn't even put that in there. It just always comes up.
You damn right.
So the firefighter is like, it's funny. It's the perfect title for that. But it's like if emotional things come up for some reason, if the exile rears its head, the firefighter wants to come in and put that out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But it's the brain trying to protect himself from feeling that thing again.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you watch the show Alone, where they're out there and they're alone, a lot of people just straight up crack.
Yeah.
They don't have a phone. They don't literally have any distractions. They have to sit there, and you're either working on, if you know the show, you've seen it happen, but people are alone for extended periods of time. That's why it's called Alone.
Yeah.
And
they have to survive in some crazy environment.
Exactly. But just imagine if you had no distractions. You don't have alcohol. You don't have anything. You don't have
food, no Oreos, no chips.
And you're just sitting there thinking about everything. All you can do is sit there and ruminate.
Which is wild because, on the show Alone, it goes to show like...
and those are people who do those kinds of things.
Yeah, like they're, quote, like experienced. But they always end up, the ones who have families, they always end up desperately missing their families.
That's why they quit.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So food, sweets, smoking, alcohol, drugs, porn, gambling, shopping, which we all know, like some of these things release dopamines. Some of these things release chemicals that make you happy for, a minute or a few.
Yeah.
So the firefighter is almost like the great redirector. Just redirects your focus towards a quick hit.
Yep. You know what? Let's not think about that.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Let's do this instead.
Yeah. So if you're like habitually wanting to go out, if you're, you have to be around friends or, you have to go to the bar or something like that, chances are that's just your firefighters.
I'm just a social person.
Yeah.
I'm just social like that.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
But if you cry every time you're alone,
then you're not just a social person.
Maybe you're coping. So before we hit into some of the specifics of the IFS technique and some, is this shit even valid? So for me personally, the reason that and again, like I literally just learned this last week.
Yeah.
So this is pretty fresh for me. I've got a lot to learn. And it's funny, we haven't even really broke this down in therapy. I read it in the book, and then I wrote down my exiles, managers, and firefighters, and then I was in a therapy session and just talked through that. And so for me, what was really interesting and fascinating is whatever I experienced as a child, I don't really know yet, but in disassociation, I created these internal family systems. And throughout my 30 to 35 years, I love organization. Mm-hmm. I love systems.
Yep.
So I'm looking back.
And you're like, why did I love this?
Well,
because control.
It's amazing. I literally can now see that I've spent 30 years building out systems to manage my internal family systems. So like for me, in disassociation, all that kind of stuff, the manager, the controller, as an entrepreneur, I just jump into work as an entrepreneur. It's been good for me. It's worked. But then like for me, if I go to, when the whole family goes to bed at 7:30, 8 p.m., and then I'm there for 2 hours, that's where like, I feel like I can let the exiles out. I can be depressed, and
Grab the chips, have a couple beers.
Yeah, but I'm like, it's funny. I have a system for it
Yeah.
because I know I can't just be depressed and drink beer all day.
Right, because you got a family.
Yeah, like I got to manage this life, you know.
So you time blocked your
I
exiles.
time blocked my exiles. I really have, and
Yeah.
that's what's crazy.
But you didn't actually time block it on your calendar. You just subconsciously time blocked it.
Yeah, subconsciously created space. And what's wild is if I go weeks at a time and not allow myself time blocked exile release,
You feel pent up?
I start getting the exiles start creeping into my manager, my role, my other life. And then I start turning into a jerk. Or I just want to quit it all.
Yeah.
So the exiles, if I don't have room for the exiles, they pour into the managers, and then the exiles start taking over, and I just want to quit.
Damn.
Quit it all. Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty wild, bro.
Yeah. And then firefighters for me, I mean, I've talked about it so many times on this thing. Like I can crush half a bag of chips right before I go to bed.
Oh, yeah.
Like I wake up in management mode, you know, I drink a ton of water, I do all these things, I exercise, I focus, I do all these things. But then by the time we're at the end of the day, like that's just where the manager is out of energy.
They clocked out.
He's clocked out. And then the exiles come in, you know.
Yeah. They creep in from the shadows.
They creep in, yeah. And then the firefighters. So yeah, the exiles are those statements and those deep feelings, and then the firefighter is just whatever I can get my hands on to shut them up. And then the manager is, I'm a great dad.
Yeah.
You know, I got to be a good dad. I got to be a good husband.
Yeah.
I got to be, you know, all these things to all these people. And so it's pretty wild. That's the IFS, Internal Family Systems Model. I can see it.
It's pretty wild.
So according to Richard Schwartz, each part has its own unique emotions, beliefs, and behaviors, and these parts can be in conflict with each other, leading to emotional distress and dysfunctional behavior.
So what's the goal? Seems like it would be to understand and integrate the different parts.
Yeah. And that goes back to the brain. And like you said it before, thank you, manager.
Yeah.
Because again, all of this is not bad. It's just trying to cope.
Yeah, a lot of things in life, the small things,
Yeah.
we just decided that it was bad, that it was wrong,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But that's just some shit you made up.
Yeah. Like
mean-
I was extremely depressed in late middle school and high school. I smoked a lot of weed. I'm
Yeah.
glad I smoked a lot of weed.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't, it probably would have been coke.
Yeah.
Or it probably would have been like,
Breaking into people's houses or some shit.
yeah.
Smashing car windows and doing.
Yes. Some of that stuff. I know
Yeah.
it would have been.
Yeah. It says it's better to be high.
Yeah.
It was actually better to be high than doing the other shit.
Yeah. It calmed me down and allowed me just to kind of stay chill for like the 4 years that I was extremely depressed.
Yeah.
So thanks to weed.
Thank you, marijuana.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, the goal is to understand, but understand and integrate. Understand the role of each of these family systems and thank them for their duty. Thank you, firefighter.
Yep.
You know, I
It's
see
just-
what you're doing.
Now it's you, the firefighter, he just has the wrong tools. So now instead of the firefighter having chips and beer on deck,
Yeah.
you give him breathing exercises and
Yes,
workouts.
Yes.
So then you equip your firefighter with new tools.
Yes.
So then when you're putting out fires, you do 20 burpees.
That's right.
And that's when you really transform your shit.
Yeah, and then doing the work of, you know, some specific techniques like parts mapping, parts dialogue, and unblending. So like understanding from the exile, where did that come from? And that goes back to EMDR and remembering some of the memories
Yeah.
that you intentionally that didn't forget, but pushed
Got-
way back in
yeah.
the subconscious. So it's acknowledging these different roles, and then it's understanding the role they play, and then going deeper in those dark exiles and trying to remap those.
Yeah.
You know, like the one episode we talked about fight, flight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in EMDR, going back to my 5-year-old self and 8-year-old self, he was silent. I was pissed at him for being
Right.
silent. But understanding freeze, I wasn't silent. I was in a freeze state.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way I knew how to respond. And knowing that information created new pathways in my brain.
Yep. Exactly.
So then I could forgive him and say,
Yep.
oh, you weren't silent. You were frozen. And I forgive you. And I'm sorry for being frustrated at you.
Yeah. Remember we were talking in the Unstuck episode?
Yeah.
It was like phase 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's being open to new information.
Yes. And that's literal in the brain.
Literally. It's, if you're telling someone the wrong thing, not the wrong thing, but telling people certain things at certain points in their lives, it just is not doing shit for them.
Yep.
I mean, you can tell someone to meditate and do this and exercise. It might not matter. That's not where they're at yet.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you had this information come to you on a time when you were super ready to hear it.
Yeah. And meditating and reflecting on it is creating new pathways in the brain to strengthen it.
Yeah.
And diffuse the spikes. And what's wild is, like we said before, and the book talks about this, The Body Keeps the Score, the brain differentiates itself and separates itself so much that it reduces the pathways to where literally the brain's not talking to each other, the different parts of the brain. So understanding this information, acknowledging this information, writing out this information, meditating on this information creates new pathways, which then merges the brain back together, which in the Venn diagram, the center is the true self. So we're literally, what happens is over time of coping with trauma is these sections of the brain
Get further and further apart.
Further and further apart to where the highway system doesn't even connect.
That's why all of a sudden the firefighter, it's chugging whatever, shotgunning 12 beers.
Yeah. So
and then, they're so separate, they're so extreme. It's like 3 personalities.
Exactly.
But it's to bring them all back in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're aware enough, you're conscious enough to just say, oh, I'm going to hop in the manager role. I'm going to hop in the firefighter role, or I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then you're actually leading it and not being led by
it. And like the Venn diagram, where it pulls apart so much to where the true self is
gone.
Yeah.
There's not touching at all.
Barely there. And then doing the work, the mental work, introspective work, meditation, exercise, understanding these models, reflecting on it, doing EMDR, memory care, all this shit brings those pathways back together, which then pulls them back into the true self.
Yeah.
And then, remember when I mentioned my first goal for therapy was realignment, and I didn't even know that was the word.
You just intuitively had a way to phrase it.
Yeah, and literally this is the physical brain science
of realigning.
Of the different parts of the brain coming back to the center. Is that not fucking wild?
Fucking A.
That's why this blew my mind.
That's amazing.
I know.
Now that we've been talking about it for 30 minutes, bro, is this shit even valid?
So, it's a good question. I mean, so far for me, it's valid. So I'm a 1-in-1.
You're a 1-in-1.
Well, there's 2 co-hosts on this podcast, and one person says it's valid. So far, it's 50% valid.
50% of the podcast.
In this test pool.
Yeah, so it looks like they did a meta-analysis of 12 studies on IFS therapy and found that it was effective in reducing symptoms of anxiety, depression, and trauma-related disorders with effect sizes comparable to other evidence-based therapies.
Yeah.
So this is coming from Journal of Counseling Psychology.
Yeah, so a meta-analysis means they took 12 studies, and then they did an analysis of each of those studies, pulled them all together to then arrive at that this does reduce anxiety, depression, and trauma-related disorders. So that's cool.
So it's not the only one, but they're saying it is as effective as comparable other therapies.
Evidence-based therapies.
Nice.
And this one's cool. So this is from the Journal of Psychotherapy Integration. A survey of IFS therapists found that 89% reported using the model as their primary therapy approach. So 89% of the therapists
use this
model, and 96 of that 89% reported that they had seen improvements in their clients' symptoms and functioning.
So there's other systems, but it seems like this one's very relatable.
Yeah.
And people can approach it.
Yeah.
And it's a straightforward way to make progress.
Yeah. Well, the other side of this stuff too, like we have the business side of personality test, right? Which everyone's familiar with and pretty comfortable with. You have the DISC model.
Yeah.
You have...
I don't know any, but yeah.
Yeah, you have strength finders.
Oh, yeah,
DISC,
those things, yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what it's called. Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
So you have all these things, and it's funny because the business environment's pretty comfortable with those, right? Because they're, in my opinion, maybe not necessarily shallow, but just they don't touch on like trauma or the therapy side. They're more business related, which makes it approachable for people who are, since we still have a stigma that mental work is whatever. Yeah. But what's cool is, to me, this just felt like another one of those tests. You know, it's another way to articulate what's going on. Yeah, and whether the firefighters are the right terms, whatever that shit.
This
just allows you to be introspective.
This is way more approachable than saying that your prefrontal cortex and the connections isn't making certain connections with this hemisphere and that certain connections on this side. I mean, it's just we're personifying it a little bit,
right?
You know, I mean. If you start getting too scientific, some people nerd out on that, but your average person, it's not going to be like, wow, I really connect with this.
Right.
I love knowing that the neurons are dying on this part of the brain for this reason.
Yeah. The amygdala is getting larger and the prefrontal cortex is getting
shrinking.
Smaller.
Fear state.
Yeah. Living in that fear state. So, some things to do.
Yeah. What do we do?
Well, I go to therapy. Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
I've never been to therapy.
Yeah.
So, but hey, it's been very helpful for you.
It's changed my life.
I'm not judging. I think it's great.
I'm so enjoying it. Oh my gosh. So you brought this up on a previous episode. I don't remember what, but we were talking about the iceberg.
Yeah, 10% is your conscious and the rest is your subconscious.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of like your patterns and habits.
Yeah. So if you just think about that, like if you're someone who is trying to improve who you are, as an entrepreneur, as a family member, whatever it is, if you're just on the path of improving who you are, being a better version of yourself, which is pretty much what this podcast is.
Yeah.
To me, that just blows my mind, right?
Yeah, it's all right. Let's say you have a job, you drive the same way every day. Drive the same way there, same way home. You always have lunch in the same spot. You're always doing this. Your body just keeping track.
Yeah.
And then it's like these habits are built in until it's all subconscious.
Yeah.
So then you get home and you just start grabbing food. You're doing this. You're on autopilot so much to the point that you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's such a strong autopilot, you don't even notice you're on autopilot. How fucked up is that?
It's fucked up because if you think about, not only are you on autopilot for when you drive your car, to, press the gas, press the brake, but you're on autopilot in internalizing past experiences and building coping mechanisms around all of those events.
That's a very great point. So I'm listening to this podcast and they're talking about the prefrontal cortex is so large, it's so powerful that when you're living in the past, you're thinking about negative things, it's for your body, it's like it's happening. So the stress hormones are going down. So you're in autopilot, you're driving to work same day, living in the past, thinking about all the shit that's wrong. Some people, but a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it's to the point where basically your body owns you. So your body expects ice cream at 6:30.
Yeah.
You expect the chips at this time. You expect the beer. You expect the wine. And you want to stop, and your body's like, fuck you. You've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
You want to stop now?
You want to stop meditating on the negative?
Yeah, you want to stop? Like, this is what you do.
This is what you do.
This is what you do.
Yeah.
So, to your point, learning new things, building the new connections, take a different route to work. It might seem silly, but it's like, let's break some of these patterns and let's start thinking about every single thing that we do and why. Every fucking thing, every bite of food, every sip of water. And then you'll start to notice pretty quick, man, I've been on autopilot big time.
Yeah.
I'm basically under a spell almost from my body. I just let it take the wheel and I put shut my brain off.
Yeah, like for those of you who semi-started 10 businesses, but you never really launched them, Why? And what makes you think the next one's going to be different?
Yeah.
And to me, I think the reason I love this quote so much is because in my 40s, I want to explore the subconscious.
Yeah.
I want to explore my subconscious. I want to know every detail about it. I want to understand what's in there.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited about it.
Hell yeah. Start thinking about every random thing.
Yeah.
And then shit gets weird.
Why do you get triggered?
Why do I get
Who
triggered?
triggers you?
Why do I do this?
Yeah.
Why am I craving this?
Yes.
You know, if you're even asking yourself, why am I craving this? You're already a step ahead.
100%.
And you're not just grabbing stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I always eat Snickers at this time.
Why do you grab your phone in an elevator when there's 4 other people and it's silent?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Why do you automatically look at your phone when you're in a social situation and you don't know who to talk to?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why when you're doing a presentation at work, you feel like you're not adequate?
Yeah.
Why?
Why do you have to listen to music when you're doing this? You know?
Why do you binge watch dramatic TV shows?
Yeah. Murder mysteries.
Why do you listen to serial killer podcasts?
Freaks.
I love serial killer podcasts. And I like Below Deck, and that's a reality TV show. I actually love
Like I said, freaks.
So, I mean, we're kind of saying it, but read more about this and do introspective work. And that's introspective work. I mean, and I guess to your point, Jonathan, it's a good point. Some people hate themselves so much that they're afraid to even ask themselves these questions. And that's really sad. And
yeah. It's different for everyone. I'm blessed to have not had a fucked up childhood.
Yeah.
You know? So when I'm digging deep, it's not like ripping open old wounds.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
But, you know, eventually it's something that you're going to have to do.
Yeah. I mean, we read in one episode that 50% of children in the U.S. have experienced some type of major trauma.
Yeah.
So like 50% of the population. And again, all of us should do introspective work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, and a lot of times, and I don't blame them, I did the same thing. But, you know, when young people, they're like, I just got to go. I got to go out west. I want to find myself.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You know, it's I wasn't happy with my life, so I just went to Chicago, said, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know, no job, no plan.
Why?
So, why?
Why'd you go to Chicago?
Because I wasn't happy.
Why weren't you happy?
I was depressed.
Why were you depressed?
Because I wasn't doing anything for myself to where I shouldn't be depressed. That's what it took me years to ask the question. Instead of asking the question, why am I depressed? I should have been asking the question, why should I fucking feel good? I don't do anything to not be depressed. I don't work out. I don't eat right. I stay up late. I'm drinking. I'm smoking. So the question was not, why am I depressed? That's fucking obvious if I actually looked at myself. The question I should have been asking is,
why are you not doing anything that makes you feel great?
Exactly.
Wow.
That's the real fucking question. You know, why are you depressed? You already know why. If you sat down, put your phone away.
And wrote down.
If you put your phone away, turn off the TV, if you went on a fucking 10-mile hike by yourself and stayed one night in the woods probably, or whatever, you don't have to do a hike. Just
go to a hotel and just don't do anything. Just lay in the bed and
sit there for a couple hours and you're like, well, no wonder I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I don't exercise. I eat like shit. Horrible sleep patterns.
I distract every way I can.
I'm around negative people. My friends are fucking losers, you know? And if you stack on childhood trauma and you're stacking on all that kind of stuff, you're like, duh.
Gosh.
You know, and I'm not judging.
Yeah. No.
So let's peel back the layers. Like why, it's not why am I depressed? It's sit down and be like, yeah, of course I'm fucking depressed. Why am I not doing anything? Why shouldn't I be?
Yeah.
Because my habits, if you look at my habits, anyone in the world would feel like shit.
Yeah.
You're not special. You don't feel like shit because, you know, because you're different.
Yeah.
If your habits that made you feel like shit, if 90% of the people in the world were doing those, they'd probably feel like shit. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
So,
Yeah, I think that's it's something that we might have a hard time letting go of, but it's the reality is like I'm not special. I don't feel like shit because I'm special.
You're not special. And that's that's an excuse to
Yeah.
feel like shit.
Yeah.
This is just the way I am. I have a chemical imbalance. I have this and that. Chemical imbalance, yeah, you're eating processed foods. Your whole fucking body's out of balance.
Yeah.
Everything's out of balance. And
Everything's
it's not
out of
because
balance.
it's probably not.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, but most people, you probably weren't born that way.
Yeah.
Because I felt like shit before. What was I doing? You stay up late, you're smoking weed, you're drinking, hanging out, eating fucking whatever you want at any time of night.
Yeah.
You sleep in, you're hungover, you're trying to work, you're miserable.
Yeah.
You know, of course I'm not happy with my life. I wasn't. Of course I wasn't happy with my life. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Oh, that's good, man.
rant status.
Well, and again, it's like back to the question. I love that, the questions we ask, right? So before I went to therapy, because really for me it was an experiment,
Yeah.
and I like to experiment.
Yeah, for sure.
But what came out of that is the question, the goal / question was, how do I realign myself? So it wasn't how do I stop feeling depressed? That's not
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah.
Right? And that typically ends up being the question we ask. How do I not be enraged? How do I not feel depressed? How do I not feel bad? How do I not feel cursed?
Yeah.
The question is,
What do I do?
what do I do to realign myself? Now, part of that is going deep and understanding some of those things.
Yeah, for sure.
But the question is, the goal is to realign myself. Just like for you, it's not why do I feel like shit? It's what am I not doing that's making
Yeah.
me feel great? What do I have in my life that's making me feel so good that I want to go to bed early so I can get up and do the thing,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
it goes back to habits. If all we try to do is get rid of bad habits, it's going to be a tough road.
Yeah.
But if we start
I love this.
stacking on good habits,
I love that we talk about this.
yeah.
You know, if you are sitting on the couch and you're just sitting there telling yourself over and over, I'm not going to eat a pint of ice cream tonight.
Torture.
Torture.
And then you eat it and then you feel bad and shamed and you go through that and you start all over again the next day.
Exactly. Life is horrible if you're sitting there telling yourself, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
It's way easier to say, I'm going to go on a run and I'm
Yeah.
going to feel like shit from the run because I don't run very much, but my stomach will actually be messed up from running, so I won't eat ice cream.
Yeah.
And then I'll feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easier to do good habits than to stop doing the shit you've been doing,
Oh. Yeah.
I guess.
I think so because, well, and it's back to the neural pathways, right?
Yeah.
So in
Your
the
body
pathway in your
expects it.
brain, if every day you get home, you sit on the couch, turn on Netflix, and eat a bowl of ice cream and smoke weed or drink a bunch of beer, whatever it is,
Yeah, you've made it a habit.
you made it a habit.
your body
brain
and your-
literally says you will feel better by doing these things, and that grows stronger and stronger.
Your body tells you this is who you are.
Yeah.
So you have to say, fuck that. No, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's why it's hard to quit these things.
That's like the runner. The example in Atomic Habits, which I absolutely love, it says, and I don't remember if the book talked about neural pathways or not, but putting all this together, the book talked about like, if you want to be a runner, you got to start saying the internal narrative is, I'm a runner.
Yeah.
What does a runner do? A runner has running clothes and running shoes.
A runner fucking runs.
A runner fucking runs. And so what's crazy about the book, it talks about the pre-runner ritual. Before you go to bed, you make
Yeah.
sure your running clothes are clean, you got your shoes
Yeah.
out, and you have it by the bed.
You put them in the doorway so you have to trip on them.
Because a runner does that.
That's
the,
what a
the
runner
runner
does.
has a pre-ritual routine. So when you do the pre-ritual routines and then the routines and then the post-ritual routines, you're constantly building new
Yeah.
neural pathways to strengthen that habits, to strengthen that self.
Bro, what's an easier habit to tell yourself I'm going to do? To put running shoes out and shorts by your bed or running 10 miles? What's easier to do?
Put your shorts out.
But when you do that,
It
makes you run.
Yeah, it does. And that's
So-
why in the book it says even if you end up not running because something happened, like your
Yeah.
kid got sick and fucked up your whole day or whatever,
You were ready. Your rituals were in place.
you still do the pre-rituals.
You had the intentions.
Yes. So no matter what, because then the next day your running shoes are, it's like, it also says if you want to read more, put books out everywhere. Because crazy readers, they
Oh
got a
my
book
gosh.
in their car, they got a book by their bed, they got a book at the office, they got a book everywhere.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because they know if they have 5 minutes, what are they going to do?
They're going to read.
They're going to read.
Yeah.
And so if you want to increase your reading, put books out everywhere.
And if you want to stop eating ice cream every night, don't buy ice cream.
Don't buy ice cream. Make it to where you literally have to put your damn shoes on, get in the car, and go to Dairy Queen.
There you go.
That's the only way you can get ice cream. And you know what? If in the first week you went from eating a pint of ice cream every night on your couch to going to Dairy Queen once because you really needed that ice cream, and hey, that's okay.
Yeah, once a week.
You just went from 6 to 1.
There you go. Hey, that's progress.
That's progress. And
yeah.
Don't beat yourself up.
I just don't buy shit. I know. That's my hack.
My wife knows.
I don't have it.
If it's in the house, I will crush that shit. But if it's not in the house,
you don't think about it.
I'm just not gonna think about it.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I'll go get me something. I'll be like, I gotta go to Publix and get me something.
When I lived in
rare.
Shout out to Midwesterners. When I lived in Wisconsin, I lived probably a quarter of a mile, maybe 200 yards, even not even. Almost whatever, walking distance from a Culver's. So I was getting that frozen custard.
Oh man,
way too much. You're coming home from work. You're gonna pass the Culver's. You look at the flavor of the day, and you're like, "Fuck, turtle."
So when you were in Wisconsin, you drank a lot, right?
Yeah, I wasn't getting drunk all the time, but I was having 1 or 2 beers almost every night.
Yeah, and eating some Culver's.
So
looking back at your food habits, that was probably. And were you walking a lot? Do you walk a lot in Wisconsin?
I mean, I had a job where I was driving the car around mostly doing claims, handling claims.
So that was probably physically maybe a not so good spot.
Right. That's the most I've ever weighed.
Yeah.
Looking back at the pictures, I look fucking bloated. I look like
you're Wisconsin bloated.
I was Wisco chubby.
Wisco
chubby, son. No bullshit. I mean, you look back at the pictures and you're like, fuck. I think I weighed 220. I'm short. I'm a short person. For some people, they're like, that's not that much, but I'm under 6 feet. I'm 5'6".
Yeah.
So 220 is pretty significant for me. Yeah. My face looked fucking fat.
Yeah. Where are you at now?
I haven't weighed myself in a while, but probably
I never weigh myself
somewhere around 170 probably.
Well, let me ask the appropriate question.
That's 50 fucking pounds.
I hate the whole weight thing because that's just obnoxious. How do you feel now?
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that says it all right there. Yeah.
How did you feel then?
I felt in my body not great.
Wisco chub.
No, I was living the fat, happy life.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable though.
Yeah.
It wasn't sustainable.
Yeah. So my last point here is empathy. As you better understand yourself, you'll increase empathy.
So
for others,
this is something that I realized I'm not judging people.
Yeah.
I used to people are fucking dumb, or people are this or that, or why are they doing this? And then finally you realize, man, I can totally understand why everyone's doing what they're doing.
Everyone's trying to figure it out.
And they're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And most people, because I've met a lot of fucking people traveling for work, and I've met tons of people. Most people are generally a good person.
Yeah.
So, we live in a society where, the things that don't matter are pushed, materialism and, making it on your own. And
there's a lot of money to be had for us
separating
to say fat, sick, and nearly dead.
Exactly. So the system, and I don't even like saying this because it just seems like a cop-out, but our whole system is not really built around individuals being content and happy with their existence.
Yeah.
Because there's, like you said, there's money to be made off of sick, fat, miserable fucking people.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. So I'm not judging anyone.
Yeah.
The point is we all got to talk about it.
Yeah.
And help each other out of it.
100%.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple. And I love this in the context of entrepreneurialism because for a lot of people, entrepreneurialism is a way out.
Yeah.
It's people screaming trying to get out of a W-2 that makes them miserable, of not having control in their life. And entrepreneurialism, I think a lot of people want to start a business because they feel like that's an out to their current life, their current trauma, their current, disgust with themselves. And while this podcast is mainly focused on removing these distractions, increasing focus, So you can accomplish that business idea. And you know what? If you are an entrepreneur and that gives you a little bit more flexibility in your time, then you have time to work on these things,
Yeah.
to work on the introspective work.
And there's also the people who are super successful at their W-2s. Let's say
Yeah.
you're making $250,000, but you're miserable.
Yeah.
You know, but you're like, man, I've got a great job. I don't want to quit because yada, yada, yada. Eventually, you're going to reach the point where,
Yeah.
is it worth it?
Yeah, you're gonna get old and just be like,
What was the
I
point?
never tried this.
Yeah, what was the point? Yeah, I had a great job, I had a great salary, but I wasn't happy for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather make less money.
And even if you're a W-2 and you go out and you try a business and it doesn't work and you go back to being a W-2, at least you can say you tried.
This all comes down to, I'm gonna keep mentioning this on like almost every episode. There's no fucking handbook that fell out of the sky that said it has to do this and that.
Yeah.
That you have to be successful in 3 years, that you have to quit your job and your business has to work. This is just all the shit we tell ourselves
Yeah.
to make ourselves miserable.
Yeah.
Unrealistic expectations, putting boxes around ourselves. It has to do this. It has to do this in this amount of time. And if it's not, I'm quitting. Well, what if you were 6 months away from your breakthrough?
I know. Well, it's funny. If you think about it, it's the manager and the exile. The manager is, this has got to work, and it's got to work at this time. And then it doesn't. And the exile comes in and says, see, I told you were a failure.
Yeah.
And then the firefighter says, let's go get drunk.
Yeah. Let's take a couple shots.
Yeah. And then people just do that in cycles over 20 or 30 years.
That's the whole thing, breaking the subconscious.
Yeah.
That's why you have to dig in.
Gotta dig.
That's why you got to take that iceberg and put that bitch in the light.
Yeah.
We got to look at all the things that we do under a microscope. Why? Why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
So then you can break the pattern.
Breaking it. So the internal family systems model
May be helpful for you.
may be helpful in understanding the exile, the manager,
And the firefighter.
and the roles they play,
Yeah.
and not bashing those roles, telling your brain,
Right.
thank you for trying to get me through this life or through whatever I experienced, trauma or whatever, and then start to do that introspective work, build those new neural pathways so you can live a life with intention, not a life where you feel like you're completely out of control.
Detention.
You're in detention. Yeah. Dude,
I'm
most
in
of
life
adults are
detention.
in life detention,
Life
man.
detention.
Yeah, they're stuck in an ISS room
I like that you
being
said
told
that.
what to do.
It is really important to just straight up thank your body.
Yeah.
It might not feel like it's doing it is wrong,
Yeah.
but everything our bodies do is to help us.
Yeah. I mean, even food is designed, like terrible food is designed to trigger things in our brain to make us feel better,
Yeah.
right?
And
Like-
be addictive.
To be addictive and actually release things in your brain. So when your brain is craving, ice cream, sugars, it's not like, God, you're such a,
You're such a sack of shit. Why do you always crave ice cream?
yeah,
Well-
look at you. You're just so ugly. And it's like, if you stop that and just said, brain, thank you for trying to give me sugar so I don't have to think about these deeper things that ruined
Yeah.
my life or potentially are ruining my life.
And just having the knowledge too, like
Yeah.
ruining my life and, oh, my body's craving this because I've been doing it.
Yeah. It's like
And it doesn't have to be that way.
sometimes the greatest fucking rebels in this world is that person out there taking a walk. Because you know what they may not be doing?
Sitting at home,
Letting the firefighters,
letting the
Fight.
firefighters bring them down.
every person in that park just maybe just saying, you know what, I'm going to break the cycle today.
You know, that their firefighter could be, now their firefighter is taking a walk instead of,
That's right.
hey, give your firefighters new tools,
That's right.
healthy tools.
New hoses to hold.
Tayo.
Ayo.
Sweet, bro. I think that's it.
I just thought of a crude analogy.
Let's go. Let's end it right.
So if your firefighter is, let's say you're into dudes, man or woman,
Okay.
and your firefighter is picking up sex workers.
Okay.
So that brings a new meaning to
Escorts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the technical term now is sex workers.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You're not supposed to say prostitutes or whatever.
Escorts. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I think. Someone can let us know. But I think that's the correct term, sex
Okay.
workers.
Yeah.
So let's say that's and you want to stop that, right? I'm not about to go on a rant about what's good or bad and that whole thing. But let's just say you want to stop that.
Yeah.
You want to stop going to sex workers for your firefighter. So that brings a whole new meaning to pick up a new hose. All that to say that.
Wow. Nice,
I know.
bro.
Wasn't that great? I think I'm done. I don't.
No,
That's it, man.
I think we're out of here.
All right, let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Focus Cast. Go to youtube.com/thefocuscast and slap that subscribe button. Head to thefocuscast.com to share what you want to hear next. Go forth and be focused as boy.